Welcome to worship at the McPherson Church of the Brethren. We are an open and affirming congregation that strives to be hospitable and attentive to all of creation. We do not always meet that goal, and we have our share of ups and downs. But in the midst of it all, we continue to listen to God's call on our individual lives and the life of this congregation. We continue to seek to follow Jesus, peacefully, simply, together. We are humbled you have chosen to worship with us. Welcome.
Good morning. Oh, that's great. Good response. Thank you. Welcome as we gather this morning as a community of faith. Call ourselves the McPherson Church of the Brethren. We welcome you here. We welcome you if you're watching on Channel 13 or streaming. And are there joys, concerns, announcements, anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Two things. First of all, thanks for being a community of faith and caring. You've been magnificent during this time, and I'm going to get through this. Right now, they are dedicating the building in Jos, Nigeria, the administrative building named after Jean. They are setting up a garden named after her. And then they will be a special memorial service for her. And just 2 days ago, as I'm going through a myriad of Jean's things, I found poetry that she wrote about the Chippewa girls who were kidnapped. Jean put a list of those 276 girls at her computer to see every hour that she was at her computer. So that will be part of her memorial service. Now, you gave to the SEPI project over $6,500. That is, and more money coming in. In fact, $1,000 preceding that, so it's really over $7,500. Now, here's the spectacularly good news. A few weeks ago, I sent in the Dolly story to CNN News for the potential of them being Hero of the Year, and didn't expect to get a reply. 10 days ago, CNN called them for over 2 hours. And they're sending in a film crew to Adel, Iowa, and then they will be accompanying the Dollies to Nigeria, even though it's precarious to go there, otherwise I would go there. And now the rumor is they are so taken with this organization, CNN News, which is the most watched network, as you know, in the world by far. If you go to any country at all, you turn on the TV, Tanzania, CNN News is there. They may be doing a 4-part series on the Dollies. So I'll let you know. So if Rebecca is one of those top 10 candidates, and I surely expect that she will be, then it will be in December that the 2-hour program of the CNN Hero of the Year will be shown. It was about 12 years ago that Jean and I were part of Ethiopia Reads, which was run by Johannes Gregoris, who gave all of his properties to libraries for children in Ethiopia. And when he was one of the runner-ups for CNN Hero of the Year, his organization took off. So we expect wonderful things. On the very emotional side, Rebecca's daughter, who is bipolar and who has just come out of 3 months of psychiatric care, just gave birth to a baby. And of course, Rebecca and Samuel want to go there once they get their passports. So the Dollies are remarkable. As I've said when I introduced them, they're the most remarkable people I have ever heard of, let alone met. And I want to let CNN know about Samuel's story. Samuel's story is almost as remarkable as Rebecca's.
Thank you, Herb. I think that's just a testament to the impact that you and Jean have had in all your ministries and your works and your travels and around the world. And we appreciate that.
Kirk McGregor, tomorrow evening from 7 to 8 p.m. in Moeller 212 is the 2022-23 last installment of Reasonable Faith. And the topic will be, does God's being all-loving entail that God is a Trinity? A very interesting question. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Ann Florey, my brother and sister-in-law are here visiting David and Mary Sollenberger from North Manchester.
David Fruth, it's getting time for NOAC, and registration begins next Monday for that. And once you register, then you can sign up for lodging. And then when you sign up for lodging, then you have to have a way to get there. And I just happen to have a bus that wants to go from McPherson there. So talk to me. I have 26 signed up out of 50 passenger bus. And we hope to fill it. So when you get there to conference, we always begin the sessions with NOAC news. And I can't do this because it's trademarked and copyrighted, and the person who's responsible for it is here. So I would get in trouble if I said it's time for NOAC news. So highlights always are NOAC news, Bible study, interesting speakers, evening worship, intercessions, recreation and trips, fellowship with 800 to 1,000 people from across the country, ice cream, etc., the beautiful Smoky Mountains in the distance, and a beautiful Lake Junaluska in front. So if you have questions, would like to go, I'd be happy to talk to you.
Jan Hurst to make the announcement for the young adults. This coming Friday night at 8 o'clock, we are having a coffee house here in the social room downstairs, and we hope all young adults ages 18 to 30 will be able to come and enjoy some free coffee and snacks, and especially the music that Ian Miller and Adrian Hill are bringing. It's going to be rock music. So I think you'll enjoy it and have a chance to connect with others in your age group. So please come and share that time. One more thing. There will also be readings by Rogue Writers, which is a student writing group at Mac College. So there's a little bit of more than one thing. Gene Smith, I am told, helped get that Rogue Writers group started, and so that's a neat thing to think about today, too.
Too bad that I just am slightly over the age group limit for that session. So,
Francis Hendricks, we're delighted that my little bigger brother is here with his wife Ann, and we're happy to spend some time with him.
and his little bigger brother is David.
I'm Ellen Gilbert. Just a note about our first hymn, New Earth, Heaven's New. That is something we have done very often. We know it well. But this morning I'm going to use a different accompaniment to it that comes from the newest Mennonite hymnal. So at the end of the hymn, there is normally 2 measures that you wait before you come into the next verse. This time you're going to wait 4 measures, please. Thanks.
Gene Hendricks. If you came in either main door of the church, you saw the flyer about this afternoon's brass ensemble concert, 3 o'clock right here. It's going to be great. We have some people in this room, up there, elsewhere, who are participating in it, so I encourage you to come and invite your neighbors.
Thank you. It's great to see Doris here after her little surgery this week. She didn't waste any time getting involved back out in life. So, and also we have a group. A lot of our youth and some of our adults are in Washington, D.C. With Christian Citizenship Seminar. Saw some pictures from their being there yesterday. I know one of their adventures was getting caught in a downpour and getting soaked. So we keep them in our thoughts and our prayers.
Catherine Whitaker, yesterday we celebrated the life of Lois Schrag, and in the foyer there are arrangements that are left that the family saved for us, and as you go out the door, feel free to pluck a blossom out of those arrangements and take with you. There are also some extra folders from that worship here in the back of the sanctuary if you would like those. And then secondarily, on a personal note, some of you know my mother, Eula, and she's had quite a journey the past 3 weeks, and she joins us. She joins my brother's church in Colorado by laptop on Sunday mornings, and then she gets done in time to join us and watch our stream. And she is doing that from a hospital bed in Lincoln, and sounds like they finally have some answers and she's on the mend. So prayers for Eula would be appreciated.
Yes. Let us continue with our worship.
Good morning. My name is Lamont Rothrock, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at the Cedars Retirement Community. I'm joined today by our Director of Development and Constituent Relations, Monica Rice-Fry. How many of you have lived or currently live at the Cedars? Keep your hands up. How many of you have worked or have had family work or have lived at the Cedars? That's awesome. The Cedars has impacted many of us here at the church, and the church has been a significant part of the Cedars going back to the original days at Darlow, as you see picture up on the screen. The Cedars has been a big part of my life, from my great-grandpa being part of the Darlow start, to my dad being on the board for many years, my parents living and dying on the Cedars campus, and myself being on the board, working for the Cedars, and now the CEO. I remember walking down the halls of the Cedars on Kansas Avenue. I don't know how many of you remember that, on those tile floors, and going to funerals in the small chapel there, and now spending time on the current campus. I've seen the pillars of this church, college, and community live here on our campus. This place is a calling for me, not just a job, and I'm proud to be part of the 130 years the Cedars has existed. Several years ago, if you remember, the church board encouraged us to continue supporting the outreach program we have here at the church and to know where those funds are going. This church continues to be the most supportive of the Cedars out of all the churches, and we are so blessed. Organizations were also encouraged to share their needs with our congregation to encourage giving outside of the church budget. So today we are in front of you sharing the opportunities the Cedars Retirement Community has as the longest continuous retirement community in Kansas. There have been many difficult years since then, the beginning of Darlow, even a tornado that destroyed the home. Today, retirement communities and healthcare organizations are in some of the most challenging times ever. State and federal funds are shrinking while the population of us, 60 and older adults, is growing at the most significant numbers ever.
So currently we serve nearly 250 residents in independent living, assisted living, special care, and long-term care services. We have over 140 employees serving those residents. I just started my role there 2 months ago, and I'm slowly meeting and getting to know many of these residents and employees, some of whom I'm seeing sitting out here today, and I can confirm that the Cedars is a very special community. But as of today, 23 retirement homes in Kansas have closed since 2020, and projections are that 30% of all Kansas homes will close. The Cedars is working hard to ensure that we're not one of those statistics. The board, executive team, and employees are all working to determine what retirement communities must look like for the next 130 years. Private support will become a more critical part of our budget, and Lamont and I are here today to ask for your support. We aim to end this fiscal year in July by raising another $70,000 in unrestricted funds to help manage our current budget. We know you step up and make a difference when you're passionate about a cause. We hope that you are or will become passionate about the Cedars and help us to reach this year's goal. If you have questions or thoughts, Lamont and I will be in the narthex following the service, and there'll be some materials and envelopes for you to take as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
people said, amen. As the choir is working their way back, please rise. Join me in body and spirit in praying our opening responsive prayer, in singing our opening hymn with those 4 extra measures at the end. Please join me in praying. Still creating God, we hear your promise, I will create new heavens and a new earth. We pray to set aside skepticism and embrace the blessings that surround us. We pray to be a joyful people, honoring creation and celebrating life's inspiring diversity. Thank you, creating God, for your promise for our future. I will rejoice over Jerusalem and take delight in my people. The sound of weeping and of crying will be heard in it no more. They will be a people blessed by God, they and their descendants. Before they call, I will answer. While they are still speaking, I will hear. We invite you into our hearts. Help us to hear you as you work within us to do a new thing. Receive our praise and thanksgiving for your abundant love and care. Amen. Nice. Thank you, Mennonites. Will the children please come forward for the children's time with Barbara?
Hey, how are you? Good. All right, it's good to have you guys here. Hey, what was yesterday? Does anybody know? Saturday? Earth Day. Did you do anything at school with Earth Day last week? Nothing at school? No? Okay. We made earth out of, with our hands, like we were holding our earth in our hand. So this service is going to be about earth and taking care of God's earth. So I'm going to start out with reading In Genesis, when God made our world, in the beginning of time, God made the world and everything in it. The earth was empty and dark. So the first thing God made was light. God made day and night. The second day, God saw that the water and the land were all mixed up, so God fixed that too. God spent the next 5 days making the sun, the moon, planting plants, making fish and birds. God made animals and small animals. God made wild animals and tame animals. And God told each kind of animal to make more animals just like themselves. Then God smiled because what God had done was very good. God's world is good. Do we always take care of God's world? Not always. Not always. I have something for you today. What is it? It's an earth. It's something else besides an earth. Ready? Got it. It's what? It's the world, yeah? It's a squishy ball. Have you ever used these before? In your classrooms, do you have some of these, something like this? It's called a stress ball, okay? And when you're stressed, you squeeze it. Squeeze it hard. What do you notice? What happens when you squeeze the earth hard? It gets smooshed, doesn't it? Yeah. Do you think the earth ever feels stressed? I think so. I think so. I think the earth feels stressed a lot. When do you think the earth might feel stressed? What about when we pollute it? What about when we use those plastic bags that come from stores instead of bringing our own or bringing our paper bags? Yeah. Well, I have a story today. It's called The Earth Book by Todd Parr. Have you ever seen any of Todd Parr's works before? I love his illustrations. They are so colorful. So let's see what happens to our earth. I take care of the earth because I know that I can do little things every day to make a big difference. I can use both sides of the paper and bring my own bags to the market because, can you see the pictures? I love the trees, and I want the owls to have a place to live. I turn off the faucet when I brush my teeth and use less water for my baths because I love the fish, and I want the oceans to stay blue. I take the school bus and ride my bike because I love the stars and I want the air to be clear so I can see them sparkle. I try to eat every bite on my plate and save my leftovers because I love watching things grow and I want there to be enough food for everyone. I remember to turn off the lights and shut the refrigerator to save energy because I love the polar bears and I want the snowman to stay cool. We don't like that warming of our earth. I throw garbage into the trash can and recycle glass, aluminum, paper, and plastic because I like to walk barefoot in the grass and I don't want to have to move to Mars. You know, some people actually say we could just move to Mars if we pollute our earth and ruin it. Most of all, I help take care of the earth because I want all of us to be happy and healthy. So this is a note from Todd Parr. It says, every one of us can protect the earth and make it feel good. Remember, if we take care of it, it will take care of us. So as you guys are squishing your balls, I noticed you're playing with them, and that's great, okay? Little things we can do to help the earth. Turn off the water, pick up the trash, ride our bikes more often. Sometimes we think, I'm just one person. That's not going to affect our earth that much. But if we put all those one persons together, it makes a lot of people. And we can make changes so that our earth doesn't have to look like this, all squished up and stressed out. It can go like this, happy, okay? You may keep these earth balls. If you ever feel stressed, go ahead and squeeze it. If you think about using plastic bags, Instead of paper bags, squeeze it and think about what you're doing to your earth. Okay? See you guys next week.
This morning, instead of our traditional giving video that we usually run at this time, we have permission to share with you a different video. It's entitled, What Are the Bio-Nears? This is a gorgeous video that runs by quickly. He talks quickly, and he has a lot to say. And if you turn to your printed copy, you're going to see tons and tons and tons of words on the back, and that is the text for this video and also for the video that will be embedded in the words that Shane will be bringing. I invite you to ignore that right now, to take that home and to read that and think about that later, and to just take in the video. And what this video did for me was gave me hope to know what a whole new generation is imagining for our earth and how they imagine they might make a difference as bioengineers on our planet.
As we enter the dawn of the age of biology, what are the precepts? What are the values? Perhaps we can begin to see some of the beginnings of the topography of a nature-based human society. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and the Bioneers agree. Their strategy is to imitate and mimic nature and natural systems. In nature, there are no kings, only kin, an intricate web of interdependent relationships. At the molecular core of life, from the microbes to the mammals, all the organisms have far more in common than they have different. Contrary to Darwin's picture of the competitive survival of the fittest, the Bioneers find a biology based on cooperation and symbiosis. Scientific studies find that ecosystems rich with diversity rebound quickly and strongly from crisis and stress, whereas those with diminished diversity do not. Diversity is the heart of evolution, and without it, organisms cannot successfully adapt to change, which is really the only constant in nature. In nature, there is no waste. The concept doesn't even exist. Everything is someone's lunch of food or energy. The Bioneers call for an attitude adjustment that eliminates the concept of waste and instead substitutes the concept of food and a food web. The Bioneers universally speak of the sacredness of life itself. What spirituality means to the Bioneers is simply a reverence for life. Perhaps the greatest hallmark of the Bioneers is a strong personal connection to nature, usually from childhood. They all talk about honoring nature and deriving comfort and sustenance from nature. They express extreme humility in the face of the grandeur and mystery of the natural world. Clearly, our Native American brothers and sisters are the original Bioneers and have most eloquently lived the primal human reverence of nature. As Black Elk also said, "It's the story of all life that is holy and is good to tell, and of us two-leggeds sharing in it with the four-leggeds and the wings of the air and all the green things. For these are the children of one mother, and their father is spirit."
Good morning. I'm Shane Kirshner, if you don't know me, professor at McPherson College and teacher ed. Also an avid gardener. I'm on sabbatical this semester, and my project is putting in a vegetable garden at Washington Elementary School and writing the curriculum that goes with that to help our teachers teach our kids how to work in the garden more. So with that, this is our Earth Day Sunday. Let us focus on our gratitude for God's gifts of the earth's abundance through two different lenses, one of the honorable harvest and the other permaculture. What you'll hear today is likely new and can be heavy to some of you. The resources supporting these topics can be found in the bulletin. Some of the websites are listed there. But before we begin, let us start with a land acknowledgement. I acknowledge and recognize that I'm speaking in a place that was once the home to the Kaw, Kansas, the Sioux, the Ute, the Comanche, the Wichita, the Pawnee, and the Osage nations. These peoples had an intimate relationship with and a knowledge of the earth and were forcibly moved by my or by our ancestors, immigrants, who could have a place they would eventually call their own home. I acknowledge the pain, the suffering, the injustices made to those indigenous peoples by my or our ancestors. I ask forgiveness for the atrocities committed. In her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer, a botanist and member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, explains the gifts and the lessons living beings, the asters and goldenrod and cattails, the mighty maples and the creatures of the ponds, continue to provide for us. However, in our contemporary lives, we human mammals hear, but have forgotten somehow to listen. Reciprocity, the act of exchange between groups for mutual benefit, is a central theme to the book. Within the book, reciprocity is best presented through the honorable harvest. This video clip, which we'll watch now, is Dr. Kimmerer presenting the honorable harvest, also through the Bioneers program.
If I could choose just a single element of the traditional teachings that we're called to pick up, it would be the teachings of the honorable harvest, which were taught us by the plants, who give us everything that we need. It's a covenant of reciprocity between humans and the living world, a very sophisticated ethical protocol. One of the first steps of the honorable harvest is to understand that the lives that we are taking are the lives of generous beings, of sovereign beings. And in order to accept their gift, we owe them at least our attention. To care for them, we must know what they need. And at the very minimum, we should know their names. And yet, the average American can name over 100 corporate logos and 10 plants. Is it a surprise that we have accepted a political system that grants personhood to corporations and no status at all for wild rice and redwoods? The protocols for the honorable harvest are not really written down, but if they were, it would look something like this. When you get to the woods, you don't just start grabbing everything in sight. We're taught never to take the first plant that you see, and that means you'll never take the last. This is a prescription with inherent conservation value. And then if we encounter another plant, we ask permission. I've always been taught to address that plant, to introduce myself, and tell it what it is that I have come for. If you're going to take a life, you have to be personally accountable for it. I know there are places where if you talk to a plant, they think you are crazy, but in our way, it's just good manners. If you're going to ask, you have to listen for the answer. You can listen in different ways, pragmatically, intuitively. Look around, see whether those plants have enough to share. And if the answer is no, you go home. For we remember that they don't belong to us. And taking without permission is also known as stealing. And the Honorable Harvest counsels that we also take in such a way that does the least harm and in a way that benefits the growth of the plant. Use everything that you take. It's disrespectful of the life that's given to waste it. The next tenet of the honorable harvest is to share it with others, human and non. The earth has shared generously with us, so we have to model that behavior in return. And a culture of sharing, we know, is a culture of resilience. Plant gatherers often leave a spiritual gift behind, but it can also be a material gift. Weeding, caretaking, spreading seeds, helping those plants to flourish. We give songs, we give ceremony, we give our respect, we give fertilizer. Every breath that you take is a breath that was made for you by plants. The water that you drink, whether you're in an urban setting, whether you're on a remote mountaintop, we still are recipients of those gifts. And if we take the time to be grateful, that brings us into that state of humility, of understanding that we are not at the top of a biological hierarchy, that in fact we are the younger brothers of creation.
The Honorable Harvest reminds us how to listen to the earth and all the inhabitants that our Creator has provided. For all of life's lessons come from the earth if we take time to hear and to listen. All the earth and our Creator asks in return is an act of gratitude. Never take the first, never take the last. If the first berry seen in the woods is the last one, it can't drop its seeds, the plant will be gone. Or if all the fruit is taken, what's left for the birds or the next generations? Dr. Kimmer reminds us to ask permission before harvesting. That's the easy part. The beautiful flowers of spring give themselves to us with their brilliant colors. But Dr. Kimmer continues, but listen to the answer. That's the challenge. I interpret this as our conscience telling us if it's right or wrong. How much should we take, if we should take any at all? Should I look in another location or take these that are here? I interpret this also asking and answering as a prayer with our Creator. The Honorable Harvest continues with, take only what you need. Isn't a small bouquet just as pretty as a large one? Why not leave some flowers for others to enjoy or for the pollinators? The other half of this component is use all that you take. That's pretty simple. It's disrespectful not to use all of our harvest. At a minimum, we should be composting, reducing, and recycling. The next component of the Honorable Harvest focuses on the process of how we approach. Do no harm. Kimmer reminds us that how we physically engage with the earth is just as important as what we take from the earth. When taking plants from the earth, we should disturb the soil the least amount possible. Farmers could use no-till practices. She says, dig with a stick. Why use a shovel when a stick will do? Related to this theme, in my mind, is the Old Testament use of the Hebrew word radah, translated as rule or have dominion over, to describe the relationship between humans and the rest of creation. Analysis of this word by scholar Andrew Baston suggests that this word is meant in a sense of authoritative use rather than authoritarian. In it is the authority, but it is never, quote, oppressive or harsh, a kind of authority that enables the ruled thing to develop and open up as they should. If God is love, then so should we be towards the rest of creation, end quote. It is the authority that we see the relationship with our loving God, a peaceful protector. The steps of the Honorable Harvest I find that I overlook the most is simply be grateful. It's easy for me to see the beautiful sunset and be grateful, or the blossoming flower and be grateful, or a tomato for a BLT. But what about dandelions and other weeds in our yard? It's hard to remember to say thank you for chickweed, henbit, sandburrs, goat heads, and bindweed. Yet these weeds, if any plant could be called a weed, serve an environmental purpose. They all have a lesson to teach us. These plants are designed to fill barren soil to stop erosion. They fill the blank spots, sometimes better than we want. The chickweed and the henbit show up first in spring because they're cool weather plants. Sandburrs and goat heads when it gets warmer. Bindweed is there all the time. Thank you, Creator, for these plants, wanted and less wanted, because they teach us all lessons. The final tenet of the Honorable Harvest is sharing. Sharing with humans and with the more than humans. As Kimmerer says, a culture of sharing is a culture of resilience. Sharing happens in many forms. Plants share by providing food, medicine, beauty, and other things for future generations. Birds share their songs to sing. Stars provide a shining, guiding light at night. We humans are given gifts like poetry of words and music, painting and pottery, toiling in the garden to help grow food for others. The honorable harvest should be a guideline for our peaceful living with the earth, a reflection of our relationship with our Creator. The other lens to look through today is that of permaculture. Linguistically, permaculture is a combination of the words permanent and agriculture, although more recently it's also been added to social culture. It's not just agriculture. So the term permaculture was started by Bill Mollison and David Holgram in the early 1970s in their work and study in food production in very arid Australia. The oil embargoes of the early 1970s came into existence, and this pushed greater emphasis towards permaculture, and it's still fairly well known in small circles. With the organic movement, it's gained more energy in recent years, or at least it's really come to my attention in recent years. Going to technology for a moment. I have to be patient till the light comes on. All right, permaculture is guided by these three ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share. It pretty much aligns with what I think of Brethren values. These three ethics are supported by 12 principles. Again, I think if you look at these and the three ethics, they also closely align to the honorable harvest that we just saw in the video. Let's walk through these different principles. First is observe and interact. The first principle calls us to pay close attention to our environment that we're interacting with. Through our observation and interaction, we will notice details and learn the lessons from the environment. For example, last summer, I learned to look closely to identify the black and white barrel-shaped eggs of the harlequin beetle that grew up to suck all the life out of all my brassica, my Brussels sprouts and cabbages. Kimmerer states in Breeding Sweetgrass, paying attention is a form of reciprocity with the living world. Receive the gifts with open eyes and an open heart. Janelle Flory-Schrock and I have been engaged with a group from the Dick Arboretum this last year called Care for Common Ground. Through that group, we would meet monthly, and one of our activities was to observe as most often as possible from a single space. I would walk my dog on the same path through Lakeside Park every day for 12 years. You really get in touch with the world when you see the same thing. Maybe it's as simple as looking out your kitchen window while you're washing the dishes. You see the seasons come and go. You get to become intimate with the animals and the flowers that are growing outside your window. Principle 2, catch and store energy. In simple terms, this could be harvesting rainwater off the garage roof for the potted plants. More complex, we put a solar array on the church roof. It can also include emotional energy, knowing when you need to help a friend or when you yourself need to step away and take a break. The bottom line is resources, natural, social, and emotional, tend to be finite, and we need to manage them. Item 3, obtain a yield. Our work and energy needs to gain positive results. The purpose of permaculture originally was food production in an energy declining world. Thus, the goal was to yield food. Again, we could yield other resources such as water runoff or solar energy. Or looking broader than food, what about the social emotional yield that we hope to get from our cultural, subcultural, and societal interactions? How does this principle of obtain a yield fit into committee work at the church? Item 4, self-regulate and accept feedback. It's a challenging but very simple principle. In one context, this principle asks us to use less. Walk more, use less gas, buy less processed foods, make fewer trips to Walmart. There's an element of adapting challenges. It makes me think of musicians And actors, listening to fellow performers, are you blending appropriately? That adaptation needs to happen there when you're in concert, as they're doing over here moments ago. I've heard it said the planet is always self-regulating. It's not broken. The planet does not need fixed. The question is simply, can our human species, can the human mammal continue to survive on the planet? The planet's going to be here. That's not a question. Number 5, use and value renewables. Again, solar energy, wind energy, rain barrels for water. Number 6, produce no waste. Online, there are stories of actor Ed Begley Jr. saying that he could collect his entire week's worth of trash and put it into the glove box of his Prius, and he did it on video. Compost your waste in your yard, food waste and yard waste on site, if at all possible. Reduce, recycle, or better yet, don't purchase in the first place. I personally have tried to, we use the little bags instead of the plastic at the grocery store. Only once in 3 years have I had a single serving water bottle. I simply avoid those if that's the only, I'll be thirsty as opposed to use one of those whenever possible. Try buying locally so we don't have to ship our produce or other goods across the nation. Number 7, design from pattern to detail. Look at the big picture first. Sometimes we forget to see the forest because of the trees. This requires systems thinking. Look at a microclimate in your yard. The north side of my house is shaded longer in the spring. It becomes shaded earlier in the fall. It's cooler and it's moister than the rest of my yard. Like most of these principles, it can link to others. You have to observe and interact, principle 1, so that you can look at design and from pattern to detail. I also admit I'm guilty of buying a focus plant at the nursery because of its unique color and its neat texture, only to get home to find out that I don't have a spot for that particular plant. Alas. The same is true in our social circles. Sometimes we make changes in our lives because it's convenient for us, and we don't look at the larger ramifications that our behaviors might have on others. So again, design from the big picture to the detail. Number 8 is integrate rather than separate. This is the principle of working together. Use the strength of one to support others. Look at the Three Sisters garden. It's an interplanting of corn, beans, and squash. The corn grows tall and acts as a trellis for the vining beans. The beans are a legume that draw nitrogen from the air and place it into the soil for all of the plants to use. And the squash may vine a little bit up the corn, but primarily it sprawls across the earth, shading the soil, keeping it moister, and the shade keeps some of the weed seeds from germinating. These 3 plants also provide all kinds of food needed for human beings: carbohydrates, proteins, and other vitamins. How do we integrate in our church? What could we be doing better here as well? Number 9, use small, slow solutions. The phrase is, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The slow and steady wins the race. Exemplify this principle. It asks us to think and act locally. This can be challenging in our Amazon Prime world, where we can literally have anything shipped to us overnight. Instead, have patience. Can you do without, or can you wait till it's locally available? From a gardening perspective, I think of saving seeds. I borrowed some pears. I was given some pears from Steve and Tina Burkholder's pear tree. I used the pears. I saved every one of the seeds. I planted 150 pear seeds in my garden last year. I now have 10 or 12 pear trees. They're about an inch tall. They all have leaves on them this year. In a couple of generations, I may have a new species of pear that is specifically adapted to my garden's microclimate. The ones that aren't going to make it, and that's okay. They're not intended for my space. These are for my space, if you need a tree simulator. I also did the same with cherries. I've got about 30 cherry seedlings. They're not ready to transplant yet. I have 8 or 10 peach trees as well on my property. Number 10, value and use diversity. Socially, we have our own talents and ways of thinking. When different minds approach a singular challenge, the different thoughts produce more robust solutions. In the garden and agriculture, polycultures are more resilient than monocultures. If an entire field is planted in one species, it can be attacked by bugs and destroyed unless we use many harsh chemicals to help prolong the life of the desired plant. In gardening, if we interplant flowers with vegetables, it's not only more beautiful, the whole system is stronger. The flowers, especially natives, can bring and attract beneficial insects that can be used for pollination and also attack the undesirable. There's an idea called a trap plant. For example, radishes can invite flea beetles and root flies away from cabbages. So you intentionally plant radishes not to eat, but just to bring the bugs there to protect the crop that you desire. So the loss may be intentional to the radish, but you've saved the desired cabbages. Number 11, the edge effect. If you notice the image of a tall forest, the tall forest has a large canopy. Underneath, the shade is so dense from the tall trees that underneath the ground cover is limited. At the edge of the forest, where the meadow begins, we have great diversity of plants. The added sun allows many more plants to grow. So the edge is where there is more diversity, there is more energy, there is more life, there is more growth and intermixing. The same metaphor is true for life. In our human experiences, we find more growth when we're at the edge. When we're in our comfort zone, we're not growing. We need to be pushed to the boundary. New experiences help us grow. Traveling helps us grow. When we're complacent, when we're in a state of homeostasis, there is no growth. Directly related to the previous principle of diversity, margins and diversity, these various principles easily overlap. The last one, item 12, is creative use and response to change. I've heard from another permaculturist state, the problem is the solution. The problem isn't that you have too many bugs in your garden. You don't have enough chickens. You don't have enough diversity. If we have more diversity, we bring in the predatory bugs who feast on the undesirable bugs. More trees, more shrubs. More water brings in more birds. If we surround our vegetable garden with bird houses, we have more competition. I have a little shepherd's crook bird feeder, and I just heard this online the other day. Wherever a lady sees lots of bugs in her garden, she takes her bird feeder and just sticks it in the garden. It brings the birds to eat the bird seed. While they're there, they're going to pick up the extra bugs that are around. No chemicals used in that situation. David Holmgren has written this small volume, about 900-page book, called Retro Suburbia. He challenges us to rethink suburban environments where most people tend to live as a place to use creativity to solve a lot of the world's problems. It's a new vision in our energy descent world. He proposes things such as, if each neighbor plants a different fruit tree in their yard, you don't have to have a whole orchard in your yard. Each person plants one tree, but you know your neighbors. I can't eat every apple that's in my apple tree. If you have a pear tree and you have a plum tree, we now are friends and we swap all of our fruit, and now we all have abundance by simply sharing what's there in our neighborhood. Or we have a gardening blitz. We all show up at one person's house and help them do their big project. Next weekend we'll meet at someone else's. Instead of everyone being overwhelmed by all their yard work, you have a yard party and everyone comes together and works together. When thinking of change in the big picture, there's, again, no question the planet will survive. It always has. The simple question is, will the human mammal species be able to survive on the planet? Native American stories speak of Mother Earth, Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, and Grandfather Sun. Kimmer refers to humans as the younger brothers on the planet, since biologically we are young as a species. Our plant brothers and sisters have been around much longer and have had many more years to adapt to the planet. We still have a lot to learn. By heeding the steps of the Honorable Harvest, practicing the 12 principles of permaculture and the 3 ethics, we can learn a more balanced way of living on the earth that has been provided by our Creator. Be grateful for what we have been given. Show reciprocity. In the words of Robin Wall Kimmerer, quote, even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because my head is in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. Finally, I'm looking for people to join me in a Care for Common Ground group here at this church. This group is based on the curriculum from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Garrett Theological Seminary, and was piloted at Dick Arboretum, again, Kendra, Janelle, myself, and others. This will be an ongoing fluid group that dive deeply into Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass and other readings. We'll explore science of ecology and sociology in our local context, and engage in hands-on activities from gardening and hiking to art and eating. Please look for details in church communications as we get more organized. I'll end with another quote by Kimmerer. It's not the land that's broken, it's our relationship with the earth. What will I give?
Would you join me in thanking Shane? I would remind you that one of our pillars of our strategic plan is creation care. We will put the links, I meant to put the links to those videos and those people in your printed materials, and I didn't get that done. So we will add that to the newsletter and information about the Common Ground opportunity, and we'll push that out to you in your newsletter so that you can have access to that. I would invite you to rise to join in singing our closing hymn, our closing prayer. And then this morning, Ellen asked that we continue to stand and that as we share together the last song, you move, you clap, you do what feels right as we close our worship this morning. Please join in singing. Please join me in speaking our unison sending words of commitment. I pray to be granted the strength and courage to live radically transformed, walking gently upon this earth, in right relationship, nurtured by God's love, open to the wind of the Spirit, taking only what I need, always open to the needs of others, making choices that bring well-being, living with generosity, striving for justice, honoring all with reverence, reconciling and peacemaking, mindful of those who will come after, recognizing my proper place part of this good creation.